Episode 10 of Space Prison by Tom Godwin. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Space Prison, Episode 10. Schroeder was returning from a trip he had taken alone to the east, coming down the long canyon that led from the high face of the plateau to the country near the caves. He hurried, glancing back at the black clouds that had gathered so quickly on the mountain behind him. Thunder rumbled from within them, an almost continuous roll of it as the clouds poured down their deluge of water. A cloudburst was coming, and the sheer-walled canyon down which he hurried had suddenly become a death-trap, its sunlit quiet soon to be transformed into roaring destruction. There was only one place along its 9-mile length where he might climb out, and the time was already short in which to reach it. He had increased his pace to a trot when he came to it, a talus of broken rock that sloped up steeply for 30 feet to a shelf. A ledge 11 feet high stood over the shelf, and other lower ledges set back from it, like climbing steps. At the foot of the talus he stopped to listen, wondering how close behind him the water might be. He heard it coming, a sound like the roaring of a high wind up the canyon, and he scrambled up the talus of loose rock to the shelf at its top. The shelf was not high enough above the canyon's floor. He would be killed there, and he followed it 50 feet around a sharp bend. There it narrowed abruptly to merge into the sheer wall of the canyon. Blind Alley. He ran back to the top of the talus where the edge of the ledge, ragged with projections of rock, was unreachably far above him. As he did so, the roaring was suddenly a crashing, booming thunder, and he saw the water coming. It swept around the bend at perhaps 100 miles an hour, stretching from wall to wall of the canyon, the crest of it seething and slashing and towering 40 sheer feet above the canyon's floor. A prowler was running in front of it, running for its life, and losing. There was no time to watch. He leaped upward, as high as possible, his crossbow in his hand. He caught the edge of the bow over one of the sharp projections of rock on the ledge's rim, and began to pull himself up, afraid to hurry lest the rock cut the bowstring in two and drop him back. It held, and he stood on the ledge, safe, as the prowler flashed up the talus below. It darted around the Blind Alley shelf and was back a moment later. It saw that its only chance would be to leap up on the ledge where he stood, and it tried, handicapped by the steep, loose sleep it had to jump from. It failed and fell back. It tried again, hurling itself upward with all its strength, and its claws caught fleetingly on the rough rock a foot below the rim. It began to slide back, with no time left it for a third try. It looked up at the rim of safety that it had not quite reached, and then on up at him, its eyes bright and cold with the knowledge that it was going to die and its enemy would watch it. Schroeder dropped flat on his stomach and reached down, past the massive black head, to seize the prowler by the back of the neck. He pulled up with all his strength, and the claws of the prowler tore at the rocks as it climbed. When it was coming over the ledge safe, he rolled back from it and came to his feet in one swift, wary motion, his eyes on it and his knife already in his hand. As he did so, the water went past below them with a thunder that deafened. Logs and trees shot past, boulders crashed together, and things could be seen surging in the brown depths, shapeless things that had once been woods goats and the battered gray bulk of a unicorn. He saw it all with a sideward glance, his attention on the prowler. It stepped back from the rim of the ledge and looked at him, warily as he looked at it. With the wariness was something like question, and almost disbelief. The ledge they stood on was narrow, but it led out of the canyon and to the open land beyond. He motioned to the prowler to precede him, and, hesitating a moment, it did so. They climbed out of the canyon and out onto the grassy slope of the mountainside. The roar of the water was a distant rumble there, and he stopped. The prowler did the same, and they watched each other again, each of them trying to understand what the thoughts of the other might be. It was something they could not know. They were too alien to each other and had been enemies too long. Then a gust of wind swept across them, bending and rippling the tall grass, and the prowler swung away to go with it and leave him standing alone. His route was such that it diverged gradually from that taken by the prowler. He went through a grove of trees and emerged into an open glade on the other side. Up on the ridge to his right, he saw something black for a moment, already far away. He was 30 feet from the next grove of trees when he saw the gray shadow waiting silently for his coming within them. Unicorn. His crossbow rattled as he jerked back the pistol grip. The unicorn charged, the underbrush crackling as it tore through it and a vine whipping like a rope from its lowered horn. His first arrow went into its chest. It lurched, fatally wounded but still coming, and he jerked back on the pistol grip for the quick shot that would stop it. The rock-frayed bowstring broke with a singing sound, and the bow end snapped harmlessly forward. He had counted on the bow, and its failure came a fraction of a second too late for him to dodge far enough. His sideward leap was short, and the horn caught him in mid-air, ripping across his ribs and breaking them, shattering the bone of his left arm and tearing the flesh. He was hurled 15 feet, and he struck the ground with a stunning impact, pain washing over him in a blinding wave. Through it, dimly, he saw the unicorn fall, and heard its dying trumpet blast as it called to another. He heard an answering call somewhere in the distance, and then the faraway drumming of hooves. He fought back the blindness and used his good arm to lift himself up. His bow was useless, his spear lay broken under the unicorn, and his knife was gone. His left arm swung helplessly, and he could not climb the limbless lower trunk of a lance tree with only one arm. He went forward limping, trying to hurry to find his knife while the drumming of the hooves raced toward him. It would be a battle already lost that he would make with the short knife, but he would have blood for his going. The grass grew tall and thick, hiding the knife until he could hear the unicorn crashing through the trees. He saw it 10 feet ahead of him as the unicorn tore out of the edge of the woods 30 feet away. It squealed, shrill with triumph, and the horn swept up to impale him. There was no time left to reach the knife, no time left for anything but the last fleeting sight of sunshine and glade and arching blue sky. Something from behind him shot past and up at the unicorn's throat, a thing that was snarling with black savagery, with yellow eyes blazing and white fangs slashing. The prowler. It ripped at the unicorn's throat, swerving its charge, and the unicorn plunged past him. The unicorn swung back, all the triumph gone from its squeal, and the prowler struck again. They became a swirling blur, the horn of the unicorn swinging and stabbing, and the attacks of the prowler like the swift, relentless thrust of a rapier. He went to his knife, and when he turned back with it in his hand, the battle was already over. The unicorn fell, and the prowler turned away from it. One foreleg was bathed in blood, and its chest was heaving with a panting so fast that it could not have been caused by the fight with the unicorn. It must have been watching me, he thought, with a strange feeling of wonder. It was watching from the ridge, and it ran all the way. Its yellow eyes flickered to the knife in his hand. He dropped the knife in the grass and walked forward, unarmed, wanting the prowler to know that he understood, that for them in that moment the gulf of 250 light-years did not exist. He stopped near it and squatted in the grass to begin binding up his broken arm, so the bones would not grate together. It watched him. Then it began to lick at its bloody shoulder, standing so close to him that he could have reached out and touched it. Again he felt the sense of wonder. They were alone together in the glade, he and a prowler, each caring for his hurts. There was a bond between them that for a little while made them like brothers. There was a bridge for a little while across the gulf that had never been bridged before. When he had finished with his arm and the prowler had lessened the bleeding of its shoulder, it took a step